everyone, welcome to AMCi Indie Spotlight. I'm Alicia Malone and I'm the captain now, trying to fill the big shoes that Amy Rose left. The show must go on and I'm lucky today to have two great panellists here with me to talk about independent cinema. First up, Patty Cakes, P. Stins, entertainment reporter extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire.
I tripped myself up.
Because you call me Patty Cakes.
Yep.
But I do enjoy it. Thank you very much for having me.
Patrick Stinson also goes by the name of Patricia.
Absolutely. Right here, I certainly do.
And from Fandango, managing editor Erik Davis.
What's going on? Always glad to be here talking independent cinema.
Can I call you Ezra?
Called me Ezra. Yeah, you emailed me Ezra the other day, and I was like, I got to ask the origin story behind that new nickname, Ezra.
It's an Australian thing. We have to give everyone nicknames, even if they're ridiculous.
It's an Aussie
thing. All right, well, let's get into a bit of indie movie news, starting with Andrew Garfield. He may not be Spider-Man anymore, but he is definitely not slowing down. This week, the trailer for his upcoming drama, the Sundance hit 99 Homes, was released. And we also got our first look at Andrew Garfield in Martin Scorsese's Silence, which you can see there. Patrick, what do you think about Andrew Garfield as an actor?
I think he's a fantastic actor. I think we got layers of performances as Spider-Man, which is, pretty unbelievable because it's Spider-Man. You don't really have to do all that much. But you got like layers and you got different emotions, and then if you see the trailer for 99 Homes, it's really, really dynamic, and he's going to go on that journey as well because it starts off one way and then it turns into something else, and I really like him. I really like him a lot.
And anything with Michael Shannon in it, I'll watch. I know you're like me, you missed this one at the festivals, 99 Homes, but the trailer looks fantastic.
The trailer looks really, really good. This was like the one movie I wanted to see when it premiered in Toronto. And I've heard it's a really strong film. I love Andrew Garfield. He had one of his early films, may have been his first film, Boy A, it's called. And it is so fantastic, and it's such a good film. And you watch Boy A, and you're like, who is this kid in this movie? And so if you're an Andrew Garfield fan, maybe all you know are the Spider-Man films, and you're waiting for things like Scorsese's Silence and 99 Homes, seek out the movie Boy A and watch that, and you're going to be like, wow, Andrew Garfield.
He was in, was it Never Let Me Go?
Yes.
As well? Yeah, I think that was where I first saw him, and I thought, who is this guy? Good looking, great actor, and then, of course, we saw him in Social Network, but I'm excited about the things he's doing now. I mean, I was sad that he wasn't going to be Spider-Man anymore just because that was his childhood dream. But he's such a movie buff. The times I've spoken to him, we've spoken about classic films. So I imagine being in a Martin Scorsese film, even if it's about Jesuit priests in the 17th century, I mean, that must be such a treat for a film buff like him. And I will see anything that Martin Scorsese does.
I like him too, just as a person. I heard him talking about working with Scorsese, and he admitted that he was not even eloquent enough to kind of put into words what it's like to work with Scorsese. So I was like, I like him as a person too.
Yeah, and off that note, I was at Comic-Con one year. He was doing the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I believe, promotion, and we were all in this room, and like all the actors from all the different movies that Sony was pushing were in this room, and Andrew Garfield was there, and he just finished an interview, and there was a kid standing somewhere off the side in a Spider-Man costume, and he left the room, went up to that kid, picked him up, put him in a bear hug, and you could tell that this kid was just like, it was the greatest moment of his life. And so he's just such a cool dude.
That's sweet.
Really great.
I remember when he turned up at Comic-Con in
costume. Yeah.
That was really awesome. So I'm looking forward to anything else he does. Our next bit of news, after being backed for over $600,000, the Kickstarter-funded movie Kung Fury was unleashed on the internet. This 30-minute short film is from the warped mind of David Sandberg. It's the best movie you'll see all year, featuring martial arts, dinosaurs, lasers, Nazis, and David Hasselhoff. And the movie's had over 11 million views in 5 days. So, Erik, do you think this does prove that Kickstarter is a great way in for first-time filmmakers or young filmmakers?
Definitely. You know what I like about Kickstarter is that it forces a young filmmaker to kind of not just have an idea or write a script or make a movie, but it forces them to kind of create a brand and build an audience. And I think that those are things that especially in this day and age, young filmmakers need to be aware of. They can't just come to the table with an idea these days. You have to come to the table with an idea, you know, and all this other stuff, your brand, your audience, and building. And that's what Kickstarter is really great for. This film is just phenomenal. I mean, it speaks to all of my side. Just looking at the poster, I was like, I'm going to watch the hell out of this movie. In the first 2 minutes of this film, an arcade game comes to life. It tramples through the city. The guy comes in surfing on his sports car. I mean, it's so crazy. You know, if you grew up kind of with 80s action movies, this film does a fantastic job of lampooning them. And in this day and age, when the spoof genre is sort of not getting its due, I think movies like this really prove that, can you not just be successful on Kickstarter, but you could also still be successful in that spoof genre, in that parody genre, and do some really fun things that we haven't seen before. So I'm curious to see if what Sandberg does next. Does he write a feature version of this, or does he do something else completely? So I'm curious.
I love he gets struck by lightning and bitten
by a cobra in the same moment.
You love this movie too.
I absolutely love this movie. And I mean, for me, it's just I think most movies are too long anyway. So I like the 30-minute version of it. It's so fantastic. And I mean, he's surfing on Nazis. There's a conversation between Nazis about their mustaches.
Thor shows up.
Thor shows up. And like I thought at the beginning of it, I thought, oh, it's too much of a video game for me. I'm not going to joke. And then like 2 minutes after that, I was hooked. Totally, 100%. I can't wait to see what he does next. I hope they don't do a feature of this film.
That's what I was going to say. Do you think this would hold up over a feature, or does it work so well because it's short?
Yeah, I think it does work that it's short. You know, it reminds me of a film, I don't know if you saw a film called The FP, which is very similar. It sort of revolves, or it's another kind of spoof of the 80s sort of genre movies. You know, like Escape from LA, the main character wears an eye patch, and it's all based around this Dance Dance Revolution kind of game, and it's sort of similar, but that was a full length movie, and I felt like towards the end it kind of started running out of its steam, and so doing something like that's this over the top really does work in a 30-minute episode kind of movie. And it's interesting the way they did this is that you would see somebody raise money on a Kickstarter, make a full feature, and then go those routes. Instead, they raised the money. They made a 30-minute movie. It aired on television on the El Rey network, and then it also came to online. So you can see this on TV if you have the El Rey network, the network that Robert Rodriguez has, which is actually a pretty cool network. He's doing some cool stuff.
He's got a lot of great kung fu movies.
Yeah, he's got great kung fu movies, and he's got also has a series where he does these conversations with filmmakers that I really find interesting. So yeah, I think it's just a cool thing, but keep it at 30 minutes and then do something else.
Absolutely.
For your feature.
It's a good example of the Kickstarter to online model that people can use. It had a great sizzle reel on the Kickstarter page, which showed what it was going to be like. But it's incredible when you think that he shot a lot of this stuff in his office on a green screen, and then he crowdsourced for some of the FX shots. It looks great. It looks
fantastic.
Like it has a huge budget.
When watching, I thought, what was the budget? Yeah. Because it looks like a couple of $1,000,000.
It does. And I'm sure because of the popularity of this video that Hollywood will come knocking.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And those are the kind of
ruin
guys.
Him.
But those are the kind of guys you want Hollywood knocking on their door, because if he made that in his office, he's how inventive and how resourceful is he? Just giving him a little bit more money, what are the things that someone like that can do? And that's another reason why Kickstarter is so good, because you're discovering these talented young kids that are coming up in this digital age where they're teaching themselves how to create blockbusters in their living rooms or their bedrooms, and those are just really excited people. And that's why I think studios are gravitating towards these young filmmakers coming out of festivals right now and giving them the blockbusters, because they're seeing sort of this talent and these energetic, creative, inventive
and
talent.
it's great also with Kickstarter that if you give money to it, you can feel like you're part of the film as well. All right, our last bit of news. It looks like James Ponsoldt is sticking to the literary world for his next movie. The director is just about to release his film, The End of the Tour, about David Foster Wallace, and now he's in talks to write and direct a biopic on the author F Scott Fitzgerald, based on the book West of Sunset. Now, Patrick, this book looks at Fitzgerald's last few years in Hollywood when he was trying to make it as a screenwriter. Are you interested in this concept?
The whole concept of the last few years totally got me. I mean, I just can't wait to see what it really tells us about F. Scott Fitzgerald and the journey that he took. And I think zeroing in on that time period is going to be the key to making it a fantastic film. Absolutely interested.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. I didn't know much about F. Scott Fitzgerald, especially during this time. And Erik, I know you loved the end of the tour, and that shows something different from James. So he's got a lot of tricks still left to do.
It's different, but it's also right in his wheelhouse. Ponsoldt is great at relationship movies, damaged relationship movies. He's so fantastic at it. And what's interesting about this is the end of the tour feels like kind of a Gatsby story because, Jesse Eisenberg is a journalist, and he's kind of meeting this elusive David Foster Wallace, who's like this amazing author. It's almost like this Gatsby kind of esque mystique that surrounds him. But then when he gets to know him, he sees how damaged he is as a person. And so that film really feels like Gatsby. So seeing Ponsoldt come over to this, which, I mean, this is the guy that wrote The Great Gatsby, but also we're picking him up just like David Foster Wallace, how the end of the tour follows him sort of where he's at this point in his career where he can turn into a legend. This great author, but then we lose him. And this is sort of the same thing with Fitzgerald. Is he was this amazing author. He went to Hollywood. He wanted to become this big screenwriter, and then we lost him. And so it's a very similar story to David Foster Wallace. I'm fascinated by it. I think Ponsoldt's going to knock it out of the park, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it as well. I mean, this was a time in F. Scott Fitzgerald's life when he was poor, he was ill, his wife was in a mental institution, and this was just the final few years of his life. And I love any kind of Hollywood story, particularly back in those times. I think it's going to be really interesting. And James Ponsoldt's also working on a Tom Hanks movie called The Circle, which is based on a David Eggers book. So lots more Ponsoldt to come, and we're happy about that. All right, let's move now to our In Theaters Roundup, where we give you a heads up on the indie films coming out this week and where you can see them. Starting with Barely Lethal, an action comedy film about a teenage assassin directed by Carl Newman, starring Haley Steinfeld, Jessica Alba, and Samuel L. Jackson. Beyond the Mask is a period movie taking place during the American Revolution, following an assassin for the British East India Company. Dawn Patrol stars the very easy on the eyes Scott Eastwood, as well as Rita Wilson. It's about a surfer turned Marine who takes revenge after his brother's murder, then faces another tragedy which makes him beg for forgiveness. Then Dil Dadakni Do, which in English means Let the Heart Beat. It's an Indian comedy drama about a dysfunctional Punjabi family on a cruise ship, and it stars the very famous Anil Kapoor, who Western audiences would know from Slumdog Millionaire or Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. And this is your final week to catch Ex Machina in all these locations. Last expanded week, this is the excellent sci-fi drama thriller starring Oscar Isaac, Domhnall Gleeson, and Alicia Vikander. Then we have Tanu Weds Manu Returns, an Indian comedy sequel to Tanu Weds Manu, the couple now having marriage issues. This is interesting because this film has already been released in India, and it's the first female-orientated movie to get into the 100 crore club, and 1 crore is 10 million rupees, so it's hugely popular. And finally, The Cokeville Miracle, based on the real-life drama which happened in Wyoming in 1986, where 2 men took an elementary school hostage and set off a bomb, but somehow only 2 people died. Interesting. So, Erik, out of these, which are you interested in? Which have you seen? And any other future recommendations?
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of them, but right now I want to speak to everyone in Atlanta and Spokane and St. Louis and Tallahassee who are getting Ex Machina. You know, I love Ex Machina. This is one of my favorite movies of the year. I think this is going to probably be the best original science fiction that we see in 2015. You have to go see it. If you are a fan of original sci-fi, and you've sort of missed it because you were Avengers and Mad Maxing your way through the summer season, then yes, use Spokane. Go see Ex Machina because it is just fantastic. It'll open up your mind a little bit. It's got a great story. I think Oscar Isaac is an actor right now who's in a zone. And when you have actors, and we have a few of them right now who are in a zone, and when you get an actor or an actress in their zone, you have to see every movie that they're in, even if you doesn't look appealing, because you are going to get a performance that's unforgettable. Oscar Isaac is great. Alicia Vikander, I think, is an up-and-comer who is going to blow up.
And then you can watch this and you can say, well, I knew back then that they were going to be huge stars.
Yes. I will also say support Barely Lethal. Kyle Newman is a director who I feel like hasn't gotten a fair shake that he deserves. He also directed Fanboys, if you remember Fanboys, and I believe he was supposed to do a Revenge of the Nerds remake around then, and that got canceled. I'm really happy that Newman got the chance to make Barely Lethal, and I hope he gets more chances to make movies because I feel like he's a nerdy talent that hasn't caught his break yet. So I will see that. Also, Eden is a movie that I just saw last night that's coming out in a couple of weeks. And this is a fascinating film about a DJ. And at the end of the summer, we have Zac Efron's We Are Still Here, I believe it's called. And that's kind of like, if that's the Hollywood version of the story of a DJ, this is kind of a more legitimate, gritty, naturalistic version of a DJ kind of coming up through the 90s into the early 2000s. It really gave me some flashbacks to my 6 months of raving in the late 90s. I
want to see you with
Really?
glow sticks.
I did have a bit of a 6 month event, but this is a fascinating story. Yes, it was co-written by the man who co-wrote it. It's based on his life, and his sister directed it. His sister directs this movie in a fantastic way. It just looks great. She's going to blow up as a director.
So look out for that
see
one.
Eden, especially if you like house music.
And Patrick, you're going to go see Ex Machina.
I will definitely. I literally haven't seen any of the movies on this list.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are foreign ones, but Ex Machina you should definitely catch.
Yeah, but I've heard a lot about it today. But I've heard, and I believe that robots are taking over the world anyway. So I would love to see what it brings. And I also, like I've told you before, I love any Bollywood type of movie.
Yeah.
And we'll go see them immediately.
I'm going to come with you because I really want to get more into Indian films and more into Chinese films because we talk about these movies every week and I've never seen them and they always sound so interesting. So I'm going to try Tanu Weds, Manu Returns. Maybe I should watch the first one first.
Before he returns.
Yeah, before he returns and then and see what it's like. Expand our minds.
And the audience is huge out there for them.
Huge, yeah. They're really popular.
Yeah.
Another film that's out this week is Love and Mercy, which is the Brian Wilson biopic. I got to sit down with John Cusack and Elizabeth Banks. John Cusack plays the older version of Brian Wilson. Elizabeth Banks plays his wife. And I had a great chat with them. So here's a little snippet of our interview. Have a look. I didn't know much about Brian Wilson before I saw the film, but it feels like you can really show all parts of his life and it's not glossed over for Hollywood effect.
The intention of the filmmakers, all of us involved, was not to kind of do a glossy version of it, but reflect the music, the intensity of the music, which is, both happy and sad, and filled with intense longing and intense pain and intense joy. So he's not he's not a kind of a casual artist. He's sort of an all-in kind of a guy.
Yeah.
So I think everybody knew that it had to have a kind of both intensity and delicacy.
Yeah, and there's real trauma in his life, from very early on, and so much. The creativity was so intense and amazing, and I love how you say this came in like explosions and
eruptions, almost.
Of creativity, and yet he was constantly challenged and was misunderstood by everyone. It wasn't until he met Melinda that I think he found sort of
a real safe harbor,
real sense of support, and just sort of like, sure, babe, whatever you need, a wide berth to just be who he needs to be and who he is.
So make sure you see Love and Mercy. It's a really unique biopic. I didn't know too much about the Beach Boys beforehand, but I loved the movie, and now I listen to the music in a whole nother way. And you can catch the rest of those interviews on our YouTube page. We also spoke to Paul Dano, who's really nice, lovely guy. He plays the younger Brian Wilson. All right, so now we're going to our short film submission segment, our weekly competition where we get people to submit their short films and then we watch them and then we pick our favorites. So the winner this week is, drum roll, Summer Sail by Ruan Hegelman. Yay! This is about two robbers who get more than they bargained for when they rob a house. It's a very creepy horror film, a unique premise, great acting as well. Patrick, you saw it. What did you think?
It's about 6 minutes long, 7 minutes long, and it was great from beginning to end. It was fantastic. It was so unexpected and so well done and so creepy.
Yeah.
For 6 minutes, it was just so creepy and so well done. I was really happy. This is one of those films where I wouldn't mind seeing a 30-minute version of it. Again, I don't need a full-length feature film because I like the shorter ones. But this one was so well done for 6 minutes. I was really happy that you guys picked them for their movie tickets to win.
Yeah, free movie tickets. Erik, what did you think?
Yeah, no, it's super creepy. Any movie, we've seen a lot of horror movies where people are wearing masks that are kind of clownish with the smiles on it. But anybody that wears a mask that has a smile and they're holding a knife in their hand, you will get me I don't care if I've seen it in 30 movies last year, it still gets me every time. This is one of those movies where it's really freaky. And like you said, I wouldn't mind seeing a longer version of this because it's kind of a mythology that they introduce in here that I want to go deeper into, and I want to see who are these people, and it's just really, really freaky, and I'm not going on eBay. Just when you thought it was safe to go back on eBay.
Yeah, you can't. So congratulations to Ruin. You'll be having 2 free movie tickets coming your way, and for everyone else, I'll put the link below in the description so you can watch it as well and let us know your thoughts. If you have a short film, you can submit them to us. Go to AMCi Indie at gmail.com. Send me the link. I watch everything that gets sent. The only stipulation is it has to be under 20 minutes. So send them. If you've sent one before and it hasn't been picked, then just resubmit it as well. You never know. You never know your luck. All right, now it's time for Indie Picks, where we get our panel to pick an indie movie from the past, present, or future. And Patrick always comes up with some interesting prospects based on a theme. This week's theme, summer movies. So, Patrick, what did you pick this time?
Well, I want to go a little highbrow on you guys. This is a classic from 2010. It's called Piranha 3D.
Yay.
Do not confuse it with Piranha Double D. That's a different one and not as well done. And it is, you know what? It's like if your summer is like my summer and you're full of sangria and white wines, this is the greatest movie ever. Is it the greatest movie ever? No, it's not. But it's so fun, and it's so fun and stupid and summery, and I mean, it's basically piranha are just attacking
everything.
And it's got a great cast too: Jerry O'Connell, Elizabeth Shue, Richard Dreyfuss, Ving Rhames. It's got a fantastic cast, and it's one of those movies you just go in and you put your brain on the seat next to you because you don't need it, and you just sit back and you enjoy it.
And you watch piranhas biting people everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. There are some body parts that get bitten off that it's worth the price of admission.
It's a summer classic.
Thank you for 5 years
Really
it has been.
Just when you thought it was safe to have some sangria.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, we were talking about Jaws earlier. I had the Jaws on
See?
the mind.
Yeah, well, just like Jaws, this is another one that will stand the test of time. Now, Erik, what did you choose?
I hate piranhas, man. Okay, it's interesting. I was going to go way, way back, and then I thought, let me just talk about The Way, Way Back, which is a movie came out a couple of years ago. I really love this film, and it came out in July, and I feel like, I saw it at Sundance, and I fell in love with it. I was like, this is just going to explode in the summertime, and it didn't, and I was like, why? And I feel like this is a film that you got to go back and check out. Allison Janney, Sam Rockwell, Steve Carell, who plays kind of the villain in the movie, which we don't usually see Steve Carell. And this movie reminds me just of summer. Every aspect of summer is in this film, whether it's you're going on a summer vacation with your parents and you're all pissed off and you hate that, and you're gonna, and then to the time where you find like a dysfunctional family of friends because the kid goes on vacation with his mother and her boyfriend. He hates his life. He kind of is a bit nerdy and shy and insular, but then he goes and he meets these people at this water park, and Sam Rockwell, and they open him up and he meets the girl, and it's got all those quintessential things in a summer movie, but the dialogue is so whip smart. Sam Rockwell steals every scene he's in.
He's so great.
Allison Janney steals every scene she's in.
Yes.
And it's the kind of movie that warms your heart and makes you kind of be excited about summer, be excited about going to the beach, going to water parks, just kind of having a good time, and that's what this movie does for me. So The Way, Way Back, definitely seek it out if you can, because I highly recommend it.
This was one of the first movies I remember when when we were talking about Foxcatcher coming up and Steve Carell was going to be playing someone quite dark, we all said, watch The Way Back, because you see those little glints in his eye, and he's really creepy in this movie.
He is creepy.
But he's nice at the same time, but creepy. Also, Toni Collette's great as well.
Good,
and I want to go to that water park. It looks like so much fun.
Allison Janney too. Just
she
steals,
usually always just
steals
knocks it out the
scenes,
park.
man. Yeah, and I feel like she's just underrated. People don't talk about her as much as they should because she kind of hides in movies and steals every scene she's in, and then nobody really talks about it. And I feel like hook up Allison Janney. She's great, fantastic.
She's laughing
actress.
all the way to the bank. So
she is, she is. But I want more people to kind of support her, and this is a movie that you could watch and you can really champion her performance.
Hashtag Team Janny.
Hashtag.
Well, I chose Adventureland because I was thinking of this movie when I watched the trailer for American Ultra, which re-teams Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart. And I like this film because it reminds me of those summer jobs that you had, which at the time you thought were pretty crap, but then you look back on it with some great nostalgia. It's set in 1987. It's got a great cast with Bill Hader in there as well, and Ryan Reynolds, Martin Starr. Fantastic soundtrack, and Jesse plays a guy who takes this summer job at this amusement park when his trip to Europe falls through. Some great moments in it as well, and it reminds me, that time when before you became an adult, when your life was just between college and work. I didn't go to college, but between school and work for me is that magical time when you wish you had more time to spend. Did you guys like this one?
Never saw it.
Gotta see it.
But I will go see it.
Yes, I loved it. I thought this was a really great film. And I actually have an Adventureland by my house.
Oh,
that's
is that
like
an
10 minutes,
actual
and it's an
thing?
actual
What?
amusement. Well, it's an amusement park called Adventureland, and it's by my house. And it's not. This movie has nothing to do with the one that's by my house or anything. I think it just happens to be also called Adventureland. So every time I go there, it really freaks me out because I'm looking around and I'm looking at the people working the rides, and I'm like, where is the Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart story? But yeah, this is one of those films where you expected it, I think, to be something else, and it turns into that's got some dramatic weight to it and some emotional depth that usually films like this don't have, because they're maybe made on a larger scale and they're full of just kind of set pieces and jokey. But this one kind of has real characters and a movie that you can really relate to. I really enjoyed this film, and it was a bit of a surprise for me, and I think everybody should see it.
Yeah, go watch it, Patty
I will.
Cakes.
First,
Do it.
Ex Machina.
Machina.
Yes.
Machina.
Spokane,
Machina,
go see
and
Ex
then
Machina.
Adventureland. Okay, now it's mailbag time. If you have a question for us to answer, email amciindie@gmail.com. That's exactly what Ernie Trinidad did. He wrote, independent film received much deserved love at this year's Oscars. Do you see that continuing this year? That's an interesting question, I think, because I feel like, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I feel like maybe a few years ago, it was not such a divide between studio films and independent films when it came to Oscars. You think about Titanic sweeping the Oscars. Now I feel like they're completely separate from one another, and I think it is a trend that will continue this year. I mean, it's too early to say which films will make it to award season just yet, but feels like these smaller indies, the more arty films where these actors get to do, even if they're big budget indies, where they get to show a flashier performance, tend to make it into the Oscars, whereas back in the day, it might have been the studio film. Do you agree, Patrick?
And I think like it's a good thing because watching, I get confused sometimes because when you have the indie film that has a big budget, I get confused of which is which and what is what. And I think it's nice that you have that confusion because it's more of like a package deal. You don't really have to separate it. You can be, as a moviegoer, you can just go and enjoy some movies, and then later you find out, oh, that's an independent film, not a studio film. And I think it's a good thing, and I think it probably will continue, especially with some of the ones coming out this year.
Yeah, Eric, do you see that as being more of a divide these days than it was?
Yeah, I definitely see it continuing. I mean, I personally wish that the Best Picture nominations kind of reflected the entire year, You know, I mean, as we get closer, you're going to hear me saying Mad Max Fury Road for Best Picture, Mad Max Fury Road, because you know, I would love to get a year at the Oscars where, yeah, Mad Max Fury Road is nominated, The End of the Tour is nominated. You know, Carol is a big fan film out of Cannes that I think has some steam on it, and I think that's going to be an awards contender. And so I wish we had some eclectic choices. Yes, I'm very happy that independent film is making its way into those races. I do feel like it could be more eclectic, and there are some films. We saw some films at Sundance that I thought had a chance, and yeah, I mean, we won't until we get sort of into August and September and Toronto and sort of those festivals. Then we'll kind of have a better look at the films that are sort of kind of heating up, and yeah, you know, I'm excited that a lot of those films coming out of festivals are making the Best Picture list, but you know, I also want my Mad Max Fury Road among those nominations.
I agree. Just among the nominations would be nice to see, and I feel like a lot of people say, oh, well, that's just an Oscar film and that's just an indie boring film, and not like, oh no, these are really good movies. And also I feel quite, you know, snooty when you talk about things like Birdman because, oh, it's an Oscar nominated film, but it's just a great movie. Right. I wish there was more of a mix. Maybe one day. But that brings us to the end of AMCi Indie Spotlight. Make sure you tell your friends about this show. Patrick, thanks so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
You can find me at P. Stinney on Twitter, and that's about it. Just tweet me at P. Stinney.
P. Stinney. And Erik, managing editor for Fandango. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Fandango, at movies.com, and on Twitter at Erik with a K Davis.
Yep.
So go watch Ex Machina Spokane. And then come and tweet at me and we'll talk about it.
And you can find me at Alicia Malone on all the social networks because I'm very lonely. So I like talking to you guys. So let me know in the comments below and I'll just talk to you guys and then find some real friends. Okay, that brings us to the end. AMCi Indie Spotlight. I don't know what I'm talking about. Bye.
She's the captain. Yay. Yay, captain, oh captain.
Find some friends.
Oh.
Yay.